some of the Americans have this fear that AI would replace humans. And no, it wouldn't. The AI would not replace humans. The AI would replace Americans. Yes, that is the case. Because Americans are the only humans that are willing to be replaced by AI. It's really as simple as that. Greetings, this is Eugene the Philosopher, the greatest living philosopher after the unfortunate passing of Quentin Robert D. Nameland, who has been the greatest living philosopher before me. Let's talk about AI, a very hyped topic nowadays. Actually, I'm kind of late to the hype train, but still. Before we go on with AI proper, let's discuss some more fundamental stuff about intelligence in general. And here I reference my own video, Onion of Aliens, part 3. See the link in the description, where I describe how intelligence might have appeared, which properties it has, etc. So I'll just briefly recap only a couple of moments from this video, okay? But it's a pretty good one, so please watch it. So I believe that natural intelligence, which is, I mean, with an asterisk, it's really the only type of intelligence there is. I mean, let's be honest about it. So even natural intelligence is dormant about 90% of all the time, including the time of wakefulness, okay? So most of our actions we do instinctively or habitually. And intelligence only really kicks in when these automatic programs of instincts and habits break down, when they start like returning errors basically and have to be rewired, reprogrammed, refurbished on the fly, so to speak. That's why you need intelligence to do this. So, and thinking in itself is a very unpleasant and expensive process, expensive energetically, okay? And people don't usually think too much when everything is fine because of that, because thinking is so unpleasant. On the contrary, people tend to relax and kind of enjoy the moment, etc., etc., when they don't have to think. So they have to think in order to start thinking, okay? You see where I'm going with this? And it's the same with planning, you know. I mean, it's obvious that thinking is connected to planning, like long-term strategies, etc. So what does planning imply? It implies that you don't have the resources to solve your problem right now on the fly, all right? So you have to think about it. You have to plan ahead. So maybe your goal is to learn a foreign language, okay? And you cannot do it right now, just like in a span of 1 hour, let's say. So you have to plan it ahead. You will say, okay, every Thursday I will attend classes and it will go on for 2 years. So every week I will learn maybe 10 new words and like whatever grammar structures, etc. So if I do this for 2 years, maybe I will get a good grasp of this language, right? Something like that. So this is also thinking. This is also rationing, right? Because you lack resources to solve the problem right away. And it's obviously also unpleasant, right? Why wouldn't you solve the problem right away if you had the ability to? But you don't, all right? So this is a sign of a crisis. This is a sign of weakness, essentially. And the same goes for collective increase in intelligence, if you think about it. Like sometimes people claim, well, I mean, this nation became so smart, like they were like geniuses, like, you know, like this polis, Renaissance Italy, right? They were all so smart because everyone prospered back then. Well, maybe not, actually. I mean, given what I've said, when people start to think, it's a symptom of, you know, crisis. Like it means they have to think in order to survive, right? You see where I'm going with this? So collective increase in intelligence is not a symptom of prosperity in society. On the contrary, it's a symptom of a huge crisis. When people have to manage some massive problems by essentially, again, overriding their instincts and habits. So basically, they have to reinvent the way of being for at least a whole tribe or a whole nation. Okay, so that's when people on a large scale, I mean large groups of people, become smart. And by the way, watch my video again, Onion of Aliens part 3, where I discuss how maybe intelligence appeared in the first place because of some large crisis. And I keep thinking about Maunder minimum, you know, this big solar minimum that we've had, or apparently we've had, around the mid 1600s, and how modernity appeared with right at the same time, right? This is a very curious coincidence. because Maunder minimum supposedly again caused a little ice age, which again supposedly caused like huge famines all over the world and in Europe specifically. And this could have been this large-scale crisis that kind of forced people to think, and therefore they've invented modernity, and we're kind of still reaping the harvest of this change, all right, this change in culture. But anyways, the problem of intelligence itself is not that people don't know how it operates or what to do with it, but rather, again, from what I've just said, it follows that people would rather not have to have anything to do with intelligence in the first place. Okay, they don't want to have anything to do with it. So hence, and finally we're arriving at this topic, we have this big dream. I have a dream, you know, of AI. So supposedly, according to this big dream, the AI would push this horizon between habit and need to invoke your own intelligence a bit further, all right? So when your habit breaks down, now you don't have to invoke your own intelligence. You would delegate it to AI. There would be a layer of AI kind of degree of freedom between your habit and your own intelligence. So firstly, you consult AI to change your habit, and only then, if AI completely breaks down or if it's unavailable, you start thinking on your own finally, okay? Because this is so traumatic and painful, obviously, just as I've said. So yeah, so it's essentially, when we have to think, we imagine, well, let someone else think for us, okay? Let it be AI. Let's this bucket with nails think for us. So when problems arise, instead of using my own intelligence to rewire my habits, I would ask an AI to do it. And only in the most extreme cases, once again, if AI is unavailable, I would start thinking on my own. And you can clearly see all the dangers of this approach right away, okay? Like you are willingly, essentially, giving yourself off into slavery, right? You're asking someone else, i.e. in this case, this bucket of nails, to think for you. And to think basically means to make decisions. So in this case, it's the AI that would make the decisions for you. And voila, you get this self-inflicted, authoritarianism, essentially. So some people are afraid, some people, American, more on that later, by the way, but some people are afraid to be enslaved by the robots. But, well, can't you see that you're kind of enslaving yourself already by relying on AI? Again, Americans are the biggest sinner in this case, but we'll talk about this later. So people desperately want a ruler, apparently. Not to measure anything that's very long, but a ruler in the sense somebody that would rule them, alright? Apparently people have lost faith in themselves so much that they need some god once again. In this case, Deus ex machina, right? To show them the way. Like science itself it's kind of anonymous, right? But AI, as supposedly a product of science, can be this artificial god, if you wish, alright? Like whatever. I don't want to give any like mythical analogs because they would be screwed up probably. Well, Oracle. Let's call it Oracle. By the way, watch my video, an older one, like oracles in black boxes. And can the internet predict the future? Something like that. I don't remember the title myself, but I'll link them both in the description. Alright. So it's a dream of a wise ruler, a father figure, essentially, showing us the way, right? We've gotten rid of all the pre-modernity hierarchies of all the aristocracy. I mean, supposedly, in reality we didn't, but supposedly. So now we're kind of desperate for something like this, because now we feel that we've lost something very important, right? This father figure. And Stanislaw Lem, the Polish sci-fi writer, the genius, he wrote an essay called Golem XIV. That Golem XIV, like, Roman 14 number. So in 1981, by the way, and it's a brilliant essay, actually, and it's like, the whole essay is like a lecture given by this super powerful AI, which is, in this case, Golem 14. And I remember it clearly, like, not very clearly, to be honest. Like, I've read it, like, maybe 20 years, not 20, like 17 years ago, something like that. But there were some really clever ideas. Like, for example, this column says that, well, the flora and fauna, like the biosphere that you observe in some, well, let's put it this way, in some biome, it's not the fittest that survive, but the expressest that survive, meaning that the biome, the biosphere you arrive at is the one that expresses the physical conditions that are present in this biome the best. It's kind of like, life is kind of a language that the physical conditions are talking in, sort of. So you have the physical conditions, and on top of them, like the whatever chemicals, like whatever, and the tip of it, the language, the culture, if you wish, of a biome is life. And it's kind of cool. Like, whatever expresses the biome the best survives, right? There's something very deep in this idea, so I remembered it. And there are plenty of others, so I recommend you to read it if you haven't. So essentially, we dream that this AI, this golem, would be essentially a crystal ball, but supposedly scientific. It's really not, but supposedly, all right? And I would say this is nothing different from the old religious practices, where this higher level, this language model, with a higher level with respect to habit, was also governed, again, by a language model. The sacred texts, in this case. So when people did not know what to do, when their habits broke down, and they faced some new circumstances, very difficult ones perhaps, well, what did they do? They would consult the AI, their holy book, whatever it was. Or they would call a professional, a specially trained AI prompt engineer, a priest, who would interpret the language model, the holy book, and give them the answer, right? The answer they need with respect to their circumstances. And like, how would you prompt this into a language model, into a holy book, and get a proper answer from it, okay? You can see the clear analogy here, and like, it's really direct. I'm telling you. It's not a joke. I'm not ironic. It's literally the same thing, okay? And the worst part about it is that fundamentally, in the way it's done today, the true AI, or how it's called general AI, is not even possible to make. So it's kind of an illusion, a smoke and mirrors kind of game, You can't make a bucket with nails think. So living cells have will and motivation. Again, see my video, literally the last one, Perpendicular Worlds, where I discussed this in a bit more detail, why will and motivation are parts of the world of me, but never mind. So anyways, living cells have will and motivation, so they develop intelligence to fulfill these. All right? Intelligence is just a tool, really, to fulfill will and motivation. But a bucket with nails doesn't have any will nor any motivation, so why would it develop any intelligence? It's a good question. Creating an artificial intelligence without creating life, as I once said, maybe in this video about aliens as well, I don't remember, to be honest. So creating an artificial intelligence without creating life is like creating an ancient Greek out of Doric columns, okay? So you have life, you have a product of life, which is intelligence. You have ancient Greek, you have a product of ancient Greek, which is Doric columns, or maybe Ionic columns, or Corinthian columns, etc., or Parthenon, or something like that. So you're trying to emulate the ancient Greek intelligence by building a house with Doric columns. You're trying to emulate life and its intelligence by emulating how its intelligence works, all right? And it's not possible. You need life to exist in the first place to have intelligence, okay? So by making a copy, by emulating the product, you're just gonna get a worse realization of the same product. It's gonna be an imitation, an anime, if you wish. You can watch my video about anime, right? So yeah, you will never get to the it's like imitating a tree by building a copy of a leaf or something. Like, you will have a leaf, sure, but where's the roots? Where's the trunk? It's not gonna work, on its own. It's never gonna work. So yeah, refer you to my video World of Meaning. So we're only creating or emulating the physical entity, the brain, for example, like for example, neural networks. They mimic how brain is functioning, in a very truncated way, by the way, but still they're trying to do it. But it would still lack the connection to the world of meaning. We're only mimicking the physical part, the meaning part, the will, the motivation. It's lacking. Therefore, it's just a dead thing. It's just a bucket of nails. It's not intelligent in any sort of way. So I can actually understand why we do have this hype today, and specifically Americans have. More on Americans later. But we have this investment bubble connected to the AI. So there's a big financial interest in it. That's why it's so hyped today. That's why everyone's talking about it, all right? You may remember that during the Chinese flu, we've had a big recession in all the markets. And it continued pretty much until autumn of 2022. If you look at main American indices like NASDAQ and S&P 500, right? And only when AI models were starting to get implemented, specifically fall or autumn of 2022, where, for example, ChatGPT was launched, in November you can see that the markets are starting to rise. So this is a new bubble that is growing currently with $1 billion of an investment, maybe tens, maybe hundreds of billions actually. So yeah, look at the charts. The AI is obviously used as yet another money sink to keep the markets alive. So I can see the motivation behind this hype, okay? But it doesn't change the fundamental nature of how overhyped it is. You're investing into buckets of nails instead of investing into actual thinking, into actual intelligence, into actual improvement of life, things like that. So now the American segment, all right? So Americans cannot cope with the fact that their intelligence, that's kind of another motivation why Americans specifically drive this big dream of AI, keep it alive. So it's because they cannot cope with the fact that their intelligence and their culture in general is still way behind the European culture, all right? It's a big inferiority complex that the Americans have with respect to Europe specifically. So now the Americans are trying to bootstrap themselves with augmentation, so to speak, with all this talk about Neuralink and AI now specifically. So the American spirit is kind of saying, well, I may be stupid, but here I have this magical thingy, this magical augment, which would make me smarter than you are, Mr. European. And it is truly fascinating to me how Americans love using the language models. Basically only Americans do this, from my experience. And it's really weird. It's really bizarre. And they do this seriously and unironically. So this is anecdotal evidence, of course, but this is what I've personally observed. So Americans tend to actually quote ChatGPT in various arguments, and as a starting point to make an argument of their own. It's completely insane. Looking from Europe, this is completely insane. I'm serious. What? It looks like they're using ChatGPT as almost an authority. And it's I'm completely baffled by this. I don't understand what's going on. How can one be of such low opinion of their own capabilities so as to trust basically a glorified T9, a glorified T9 model? An auto-completer of the word, So instead of doing your own research, and I understand how silly this collection of words sounds after Chinese flu, instead of doing your own research still and wrapping it in your own kind of interpretation, I guess your own vision, instead of being a part of the argument in the first place, in this sort of way at least, with your logic, your creativity, etc., you're essentially asking a bucket with nails to make an argument for you. And I just don't understand. This is so fake, this is so wrong. What's going on, guys? I have no idea. This is some fantastic levels of, firstly, naivety, secondly, self-doubt of an American, and thirdly, magical thinking. And by that I mean, again, you're relying on this crystal ball. You think ChatGPT has some secret knowledge, whereas again, it's just a stupid model that just talks, a chat bot essentially. Yeah, and again, I refer to my video "Remnant Religiousness," where I discuss some of other instances, let's say, of this remnant faith, kind of misplaced. Again, you've had your faith in a language model called the Bible. Now your language model is called ChatGPT, and you still have faith in it because you have to have faith in something. You don't have any faith in yourself. So this is what is happening, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of funny and sad at the same time, I would say. Yeah. So this is what I observe, and I would claim, like, kind of reflecting upon this, that American trust in AI specifically is a sign of the American capitulation in the culture war. So essentially, the American culture troops, if you wish, you know, the proverbial Hollywood, like the music, like the comic books, the American culture in general, the Californication, you know, how Red Hot Chili Peppers called it. So if you want to call it that, like, which essentially occupied all of the world after 1945. Again, watch my video about anime. I give some more details there, specifically about Far East, like Eastern Asia. These forces, these cultural influences, are now on the retreat. That's what the American fascination with AI is showing us, okay? So Americans have shown that now their trust in they trust the bucket of nails, the bucket with nails, I guess, more than they trust themselves and their artists and their elites in general. So everyone in the world can see this now. This is yet another symptom, as I've said, of the downfall of American hegemony. And watch my video, Euro-American War Update, where I talk about this some more, okay? Like the whole geopolitical state of things. Forgive me for this word. So yeah, as usual, the isolationist solipsistic nature of American society leads some of the Americans, I think. So, well, you know, they have this fear. So some of the Americans have this fear that AI would replace humans. And no, it wouldn't. The AI would not replace humans. The AI would replace Americans. Yes, that is the case. Because Americans are the only humans that are willing to be replaced by AI. It's really as simple as that. So, and it's the same kind of, you know, like when Americans are saying humans, they always mean Americans, right? So when Ben Davidson says that the human race will go extinct in 20 years or something like that, he's really meaning that it's only America will go extinct. It will not be a leader of the world anymore, right? The end of the world in 20 years really means the end, when American tells you this, really means the end of American world, right? The rest of the world for America, it doesn't exist. That's why I call it like solipsistic and isolationist, the culture, I mean. So the world would not end in 2 decades, but the American world would. Just but by the same token, people would not be enslaved by robots. Americans would be. Because they are the only people who are willing to be. Again, I'm repeating myself. I just want to emphasize this point. Like, I want you to see what I'm saying, all right? Specifically, my American friends and my American viewers. And I have to apologize, all right? Like, I've said a lot of harsh things, but it's kind of like tough love kind of thing, you know? I'm not saying this because I want to say this. I'm saying this because it is the fact. And maybe you don't see it, but let me tell you this, there's no other human being, well, okay, I'm seriously exaggerating, but there's very little people who would tell you this like I do, alright? So the problem is that, like other Europeans are either too Americanized, so they're already in your boat, they're already overhyped for AI, like unironically, genuinely, and the other half of Europeans, or even the majority of Europeans, they just don't understand what the hell are you doing, but they see that it leads to your downfall, so they're kind of playing along. They're saying, hey, let's go. So some Europeans are playing along because they believe in your faith in AI, if you wish, and other Europeans are playing along because they know you're doing some stupid crap and you're gonna grill yourself by doing this, alright? I probably shouldn't have said these 2 words as I did, so goodbye, algorithm. But anyways, yeah, well, whatever. So yeah, take it as I say it to you. Like, I wish you the best. The problem is you're doing really bad stuff to yourself first and foremost. So yeah, you know, as Napoleon supposedly said, so this is the second group of Europeans think this way probably, like, never interfere with your enemy when he is making a mistake. Well, supposedly Napoleon said that. Watch my video about Napoleon, the movie, by the way. So yeah, when you basically say, I mean the Americans, okay, I admit and embrace the opinion that the bucket with nails is smarter than me. Like, it's the end game. Like, there's no way, there's no way back, you know? There's no coming back. And I repeat once again, only Americans are currently unironically doing this. The rest of the world is just playing along because this accelerates the American downfall, essentially. Like, I'll give you a brief example before we conclude. So imagine a nation would invest hundreds of billions of dollars into pleasure dolls, all right? What would you conclude from that? Well, probably this nation is tired or is not planning to, either way, doing the pleasure the normal way, okay? Well, what if a nation spends hundreds of billions of dollars on making a machine think and make decisions for them, right? A decision-making and thinking doll. Well, it probably means that this nation doesn't plan to do any thinking or decision-making by themselves. Is this not clear enough? Thank you for watching. The eons are closing. If you wish to support me, please consider joining my Patreon. That is patreon.com/philosopher. See the link in the description. Or if you have a scientific theory of your own and you'd like my help in developing it, please join my alternative science coaching program, also available through Patreon.